Good morning. Happy Thursday. You are listening to the very first episode of The Sports Corner live on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair, a sports show where we will be talking about the latest baseball and football news. And when I say we, I mean myself, your host, Sebastian Stratton, and alongside me is my very special co-host, Mr. Nick Supa. And a very special shout out to Lorenzo Gonzalez, who could not be with us today, but it's all okay. The show must go on. And there is a lot to talk about in the sports world. And I think it's only right if we start off in the NFL with the AFC and NFC Championship games. And we'll start off in the AFC Championship with the number 1 seed, the Kansas City Chiefs, taking on the number 2 seed, the Buffalo Bills. A lot going on in this matchup. This game is taking place at Arrowhead Stadium, Chiefs being the number 1 seed, having that home field advantage. And the biggest thing that is going to play huge dividends in deciding the outcome of this game is talking about Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen, the two star-studded quarterbacks. Mahomes versus Allen in the playoffs. Mahomes is 3-0, and I know that this isn't quarterback versus quarterback, but to sum it all up, Nick, what are you looking forward to in this matchup?
I mean, obviously, I would love to see, at least I think we're definitely going to see this, but just a tight matchup going back and forth, and I think we've definitely seen that between these two. And of course, as you mentioned, this says it all. Patrick Mahomes against Josh Allen in the playoffs is 3-0, which is amazing because in the regular season, Josh Allen is 4-1 against Patrick Mahomes. So that just goes to show you how much the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes turns it up in the playoffs. This is like Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning right here. This is like the new era. So this is going to be really interesting. Are the Bills are they going to take this loss, or are they going to go out there fighting on the road saying, no, it's our time. We're going to the Super Bowl for the 5th time in our history, for the first time since 1994, after that stretch of 4 straight Super Bowl losses, which I'm sure they definitely want to look past that and keep going forward. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I mean, Sebastian, let me ask you, do you think the Bills have a chance to make it to the Super Bowl this year?
Absolutely, and we saw it in the regular season. The Bills were able to defeat the Chiefs, and you see it everywhere. If you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. Yeah. And currently, nobody has shown, especially in the playoffs, the willingness to beat Patrick Mahomes and this Andy Reid-led team. They have just been so dominant, and when push comes to shove, they are able to get it done. And we saw this when Josh Allen played his heart out in the 2022 AFC divisional round when these two teams met up, and it looked like the Bills had it in their hands. Yep. 13 seconds, the Bills score the game leading. They were leading to Gabe Davis. Josh Allen to Gabe Davis. The Bills, 36, they have the lead. 33, excuse me. Then the Chiefs come down the field, 12 seconds, 2 passes. The game tying. To put them in field goal range, the pass to Travis Kelce. Harrison Butker makes the field goal. They tie it, so we are 36-36 heading to overtime. And this is when, before the NFL changed their overtime rules, the first team, if you get possession and you happen to go down the field and score a touchdown, yep, ball game. And after that game, a lot of controversy in the media was, how is that fair that a superstar quarterback in Josh Allen does not get the ability to touch the football in crunch time? So this is going to be a great matchup. And in that divisional round, Josh Allen was awesome. It's not a matter of did he outplay Mahomes. He played very well. He was 27 for 37, 329 passing yards, and 4 touchdowns. But looking forward to this matchup on Sunday, Nick, what are your we'll start with the Bills. What are your keys to the game for the Bills to secure victory?
Definitely put the ball in the hands of Josh Allen, obviously. I mean, he's been incredible all year, and of course, the first round of the playoffs, he won against the Broncos. Not only won, he went out and purely dominated in that game. 31-7 was the victory. And then, of course, last weekend, we watched them in a tight matchup defeat the Ravens. That crucial drop by Mark Andrews to tie the game with the 2-point conversion for the Ravens is what led the Bills to a snowy victory in the snow. And now here they are against Patrick Mahomes. So I think what they've been doing has been definitely working. So just put the ball in Josh Allen's hands. I mean, every time when he's got the ball, he sees the whole field. He sees the field great, and he will find a receiver. And if he doesn't, he can use his legs. And as big of a guy as he is, like he's got speed. The guy can run. So if he can't find anybody open, he can definitely use his legs to be able to go downfield just enough for a first down, if not for a huge gain of like 20 to 30 yards. We've seen him do this numerous times, but that is definitely key for the Buffalo Bills. You definitely want to have Josh Allen in a healthy state.
Absolutely, and when a lot of the attention is going to be on wide receiver versus cornerback matchups, and we are going to see that this season, although he hasn't been the star player such as an A.J. Brown, a Justin Jefferson, Khalil Shakir has been very solid for the Buffalo Bills, and when it's third down and the Bills have to do it, Josh Allen is going to look for his guys. So we know that Chiefs top cornerback Trent McDuffie, he will be on him, but a big key for me in this matchup, an underrated matchup that maybe isn't overlooked but maybe isn't as occupied as others, is the matchup between Chiefs defensive tackle Chris Jones and the starting right guard for the Buffalo Bills, O'Cyrus Torrence. And Jones, he's been unbelievable. He's a 6-time Pro Bowler, and we saw his impact most recently when the Chiefs played the Texans. 4 tackles, 1 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and 2 quarterback hits. On the other hand, O'Cyrus Torrence this season. So according to PFF, which is Player Football Focus, they grade players based on their performance this season, and safe to say, Torrence has struggled a little bit. His overall grade, 54.9 out of 90, which is 99th out of 135 for offensive guards in the NFL. So when it comes to it and Josh Allen needs time to throw the football, O'Cyrus Torrence has to do his best job, maybe not to totally contain Chris Jones, but limit the big play, whether that's a forced fumble, a sack, a quarterback hit, maybe even an interception. Who knows? But when push comes to shove, I think we have to see a great game by right guard O'Cyrus Torrence. And Nick, before we jump to the NFC Championship, what are you looking for on the Chiefs side in order to get to the Super Bowl and potentially become the first team in NFL history to win 3 straight Super Bowls?
Well, first of all, I think that would be something incredible for us to be able to possibly witness the first 3-peat, so that could definitely happen. But of course it takes one step at a time, so for the Chiefs to be able to come out of this one with a victory, I mean, Patrick Mahomes just all season has been figuring out ways to win that I think it's been actually frustrating for others who are not Chiefs fans to wonder, man, how is this guy figuring this out? But it's true. I mean, and that's the game. That's the name of the game, is just finding ways to win, whether it's 1 point, 2 points, 5 points, as long as you find ways to win. And that's what they've been doing. But obviously, Patrick Mahomes is a big key for this one. And obviously, they may not have the best wide receiver core, but same thing with Mahomes, as I said about Josh Allen. He reads the field better than anybody. I mean, he the guy could throw it with his eyes closed, and he somehow finds somebody open downfield. I mean, we saw him in the game against the Texans basically throwing a touchdown almost from his knees, which was amazing. I mean, the guy has shown that he can pretty much do it all. I mean, he's a 3-time Super Bowl champion, a 3-time Super Bowl MVP. That's what I think on the offensive side of things. And then on defense, as you mentioned, Chris Jones is a huge factor on their defense. And I think if he puts up that kind of a performance, that would be great. It will be tough because the Bills have an incredible offense. Their line is very good at protecting. So it may be a little difficult to at least get Josh Allen down. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And, you know, I think it's definitely going to be a tight matchup.
Absolutely. I think, safe to say, barring an unexpected change, this game is going to come down to the fourth quarter. It's going to be a great game. Both sides are going to make plays. It's a matter of who can make the big play, who can make the biggest turnover, and who can automatically secure victory and head to the Super Bowl. And with that, on the other side, the NFC Championship, the number 2 seed, the Philadelphia Eagles versus the number 6 seed, the Washington Commanders. What a turnaround it has been for this Washington team. Ron Rivera gets fired in the offseason. You hire Dan Quinn, the former Cowboys defensive coordinator, as well as the former head coach for the Atlanta Falcons when the infamous Tom Brady came back from a 28-3 deficit to beat Matt Ryan, Dan Quinn, and the Atlanta Falcons. The Commanders secure the number 2 overall pick in the draft. Draft time comes. The Bears have the number 1 overall pick. The Bears select quarterback Caleb Williams. What do the Commanders do? They select Jaden Daniels, 2nd overall in 2024 out of Louisiana State University. And safe to say, Mr. Daniels is having one of the best rookie seasons at quarterback of all time. To put it in perspective, 3,568 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, and a 100 passer rating. He has been unbelievable, and they win their first-round matchup in the wild card versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. With all odds against them, they head to Ford Field to play the 15-2 Dan Campbell-led Detroit Lions. And what does Daniels do? He shows an extreme amount of poise, precision, and continuity with his offense. In the divisional matchup versus the Lions, he was 22 for 31 passing, 299 passing yards, and 2 touchdowns. And besides a missed few throws here and there, he was awesome. Nick, how happy are Commanders fans right now?
I think the right word for this is shocked. I mean, I don't think anybody would have been sitting down having a conversation saying the Washington Commanders are definitely going to make it at least to the NFC Championship. I don't think anybody would have expected that. Granted, they definitely had a phenomenal regular season. So I'm sure that alone was, like, for Commanders fans, was like, wow, this is incredible to watch them finish 12-5 in the regular season. They finished on, I believe it was a 5-game winning streak. They finished the regular season on after they were on a 3-game losing streak, to remind you all. And they finished 12-5. They go into the divisional round to play the Tampa Bay Bucks, and they win it by a field goal, a bank shot off the right side of the post. It goes back in just like that, and they go into the next round. As you mentioned, Sebastian, the number 1 seed Detroit Lions, who has definitely in the last couple of years have shown like they can be an incredible team. And they finished 15-2, which is something that Lions fans and the NFL has never seen before. So it's like, oh my God, this is an incredible team. And last year, they were so super close from going to the Super Bowl. And then this year you figure, okay, you know what? This is going to be our year. This is going to be our year. We're going to be competitive. But they went in there against the Commanders, and the Commanders scored 45 points against them. They won by 2 touchdowns in that game, which is incredible. I sat home and watched the highlights of that game, and I'm like, wow, this kid, Jaden Daniels, is for real. He actually just tied Ben Roethlisberger for most wins, including postseason, as a rookie. He now has 14, 12 in the regular season, 2 in the postseason. So the question is, like, as a 24-year-old rookie, can he bring the Washington Commanders to the Super Bowl? Well, that big question is coming up this weekend, Sebastian. I mean, do you think they have enough in them to beat their division rival Philadelphia Eagles?
Without a doubt, and I think you brought up a great point. This is a divisional matchup. For the most part, especially in the playoffs, divisional matchups are very close. These teams split twice in the regular season. The Commanders won a game, the Eagles won a game. Here we are for Game 3. And something that I am looking at in this game is the number 1 ranked offensive line in the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles, even after the retirement of future Hall of Famer center Jason Kelce. So, the big question is, with this Eagles O-line, you have an injured Jalen Hurts, who has been dealing with a plethora of injuries, which include a concussion in their game versus the Commanders on December 22nd, and most recently, last Sunday, in their divisional matchup versus the Rams. Hurts appeared to injure his left knee while taking a sack in the second quarter, which also appeared to hinder his mobility for the rest of the game. So the big question is, and we know, Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator for the Eagles, they are going to rely on Saquon Barkley. But when Jalen Hurts and these Eagles playmakers have to make a play, Nick, how comfortable are you with Jalen Hurts in this matchup, and do you believe this knee injury will affect him substantially this upcoming weekend?
It definitely can. I mean, when you're dealing with a ton of injuries, like including a concussion and then a knee injury, and it just happened last week especially, you definitely have to be careful, especially because you're going up against a team who already injured Jalen Hurts earlier in the season. That's something else that you got to be careful for. Obviously, the Eagles are going to try to do everything they can to win, so I think unless something incredibly awful happens to, like, with Jalen Hurts' knee or something else, and he literally cannot play, he's definitely going to go out there and perform for the Eagles. It's just a matter of whether or not he has enough in him to be able to get the Eagles down the field and put points on the board, because this is a Commanders team that we've seen all season and the playoffs. They can score points, and even the one game that the Commanders beat the Eagles, they scored 36 points. So they can score not just on like any opponent, but on a potential Super Bowl contender like the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think it definitely can put a toll on Jalen Hurts if he's not careful with the way he's playing.
Absolutely. And one player that I'm looking at on this Commander side to potentially put pressure on this Eagles O-line and Jalen Hurts is linebacker for the Commanders, Frankie Louvu, the 7th-year man out of Washington State, who played very well in their divisional matchup versus the Lions. 9 total tackles, 5 solo. I think when we are talking about putting pressure on Jalen Hurts, because he has the playmakers, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. 4 guys right there, all pass catchers, even though Saquon is a running back, who can make plays when it matters. So I think that if the Commanders are going to go out there and pull off the upset, Frankie Louvu is a guy who is going to have to force pressure, get to Jalen Hurts, and force him to make erratic throws. But Nick, what are your keys to victory for this game overall? How do you think both teams can go out there, secure victory, and make it to the Super Bowl?
Well, to start things off, the Eagles, as we mentioned, Jalen Hurts is definitely key to having there. Saquon Barkley is just having an unbelievable season, as we've seen him do, as we've seen him have all season. I mean, his last game he played when they beat the Rams, he had 2 running touchdowns, one for, I believe it was 62 yards, and then another one later on that was 78 yards, and he had 205 rushing yards overall in that game, and he's been having games like that all season, so that is definitely a key factor in there, is for the Eagles O-line to create space for the man to run, and if he has space, he's gone. He's just, see ya, he's gone. So that is definitely a key to having there. And then, of course, you got the receivers of the elite A.J. Brown, and then you got Devonta Smith on the other side. So, they got a great offense to definitely bring the Eagles to Super Bowl 59. For the Commanders, of course, Jaden Daniels, as we have been talking about, he's doing incredible. So as long as he remains healthy, that'll be great. And then, of course, you got they got Mariota, of course, as their running back. And, I mean, he's been doing pretty decent this year. I mean, again, if they could just create space for the man, I mean, oh, I'm sorry, not Mariota. That was actually another quarterback.
Actually, they have been using Mariota in a bunch of run packages, although he is the backup quarterback. Brian Robinson Jr., I believe, is the starting running back.
Yeah,
but
Robinson
with
Jr.
that being said, we've seen a lot of this with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're both fans of the Steelers. Arthur Smith going out there, not as of recently since they've been eliminated from the playoffs, but they've shown a willingness to use Justin Fields in design packages, not as often, but we've seen throughout the playoffs and the regular season, Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury, the Commanders' offensive coordinator, go out there, bring in Marcus Mariota on a 3rd and 1, a 4th and 1, and sneak it for a first down, and put Jaden Daniels out wide. So there's definitely a ton of options with this Commanders' offense, but go ahead and continue with what you were saying.
No, I appreciate that, Sebastian. But definitely Brian Robinson Jr., I mean, he's been doing great this year for Washington. And as a matter of fact, in their last game against Detroit, he had 15 carries for 77 yards and had 2 touchdowns. So I think he's definitely another key factor in this game.
Absolutely. I think we're going to see great matchups, both games, with the NFC teams playing first at 3 o'clock on Fox and the AFC playing at 6 o'clock. But one thing I want to comment on quickly is what Tom Brady said recently in the media. And I think he put it really, really well. And what he said is 32 teams enter August with the same goal. Whether it's realistic or not, new quarterback, new coach, new team name, your goal is to win the Super Bowl. It doesn't happen often. Some teams have never played in a Super Bowl. Some teams have never won their conference championship, which include the Lions.
Yep.
What I am saying is Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals made the Super Bowl 3 years ago. They lost to the Los Angeles Rams. Everyone said, definitely Joe Burrow will be back. Oh, he'll be okay. But it's not that easy. And a lot of people are saying, especially in their matchup versus the Lions, that Jaden Daniels is playing with house money, which means that it's okay if he loses. I think the thought process, and I'm sure head coach Dan Quinn is reiterating to his guys, we are meant to be here. You don't get too many second chances in the NFL. Dan Quinn said it last year after they lost in the NFC Championship to the San Francisco 49ers. Quote, "We may not get a second chance." He did not get a second chance. They lost in the divisional matchup. Jaden Daniels has the ability to lead this team to victory. I think it's Washington's time now. Of course, they'll have the ability in the offseason to revamp the O-line, maybe add another weapon besides Terry McLaurin, but they can win now, and it's not easy to win in the NFL because you never know what can happen from August all the way to the end of the regular season in January. So I think it's the Commanders' time now, and I'm really looking forward to watching Jaden Daniels and this Commanders offense play in Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But, Nick, before we head over to the Major League Baseball side of things, any last comments on either conference championships or anything in the NFL in general?
I had a question for you, Sebastian, if you don't mind me asking you.
Absolutely.
So, talking about all four of these unbelievable teams that we've seen so far in the playoffs, who do you think will be playing in Super Bowl 59 this year?
I think that you have to beat the best to be the best. I know the Chiefs are the favorites, but Josh Allen had a way with this team earlier in the season. I think it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. It's going to take an effort by everybody, but I think the Bills get it done and reach the Super Bowl. And on the Commanders and Eagles side, I believe the Cinderella run continues. Jaden Daniels has shown an unbelievable amount of precision and poise. He showed it against the Lions. He's faced the Eagles twice this year. Nothing new. Of course, schemes change, game plan changes, but he has shown the ability to lead this offense. So I think this Cinderella run continues all the way to the Super Bowl, and I have the Buffalo Bills versus the Washington Commanders in the Super Bowl 2 weeks from this upcoming Sunday. Now, I reiterate the question to you. Who do you have in the Super Bowl 2 weeks from this upcoming Sunday?
So, obviously, it's very, very hard to cut out Patrick Mahomes from that conversation and the Chiefs. I know nobody wants to hear that, but it is true. Although, as you mentioned, Sebastian, the Bills they have been great this year, and they gave the Chiefs, the Chiefs did finish with two losses, but their second one, none of their starters were in, so their only real actual loss with their starters was to the Bills, and Patrick Mahomes in his last 22 games is 21-1. His only loss was to the Bills this year. So I think the Bills can definitely get it done, and I think they will. I think the Bills will end up going to the Super Bowl. And on the NFC side of things, same thing on the NFC. In my head, I'm thinking that it can definitely be a Chiefs and Eagles rematch, but I think the Bills, like I said, I think the Bills will definitely go. I definitely would like to see the Commanders go. Sorry about that, Vin Bacone. But if you're listening, but I would like to see the Commanders go to the Super Bowl because it's always nice to see a Cinderella story, a team coming out of nowhere, going to the Super Bowl, potentially winning the Super Bowl, especially when you got a 24-year-old rookie quarterback with you on your back. So I think that's amazing if they could do that. The one thing that's questioning me, though, is will they be able to keep up with the Eagles? And they definitely did it. They did it, but it was in the regular season. The question is, can they do it in the playoffs? I think they can, but I think the Eagles are going to end up going. So I think it's going to be Bills-Eagles in the Super Bowl this year, 2 weeks from this weekend. But I would like to see Commanders too.
I like that prediction. I definitely think we're going to see great matchups on both sides, both conference championships, for a trip to the Super Bowl. But with that being said, we are now going to shift our focus to Major League Baseball and the offseason. But don't worry, we are almost there. Spring training, pitchers and catchers report in about less than a month, I believe. So, looking forward to that. All teams open up in late March. But we will start with the recently announced 2025 MLB Hall of Fame inductees, which include 3 players: Ichiro Suzuki, CC Sabathia, and Billy Wagner. And Nick, before we get into all of their career accolades, how monumental they've been to their teams, how do you feel about these picks?
I love it. I mean, for Ichiro, it's a no-brainer, and that goes to whoever did not select him to go into the Hall of Fame. The one person who did not pick him, for Ichiro to be unanimously picked to go to the MLB Hall of Fame. It is definitely a no-brainer. This guy has been incredible his whole entire career. I mean, going back to when he first came into the league with the Seattle Mariners, he was a part of that team who finished with, I believe it was 116 wins, the best winning season in baseball, I believe still to this day, 116 wins. And he was with the Mariners for, I think, pretty much his entire career. He was with them from 2001 to 2012. And then after that, he went to the Yankees from 2012 to 2014. Then to the Marlins from 2015 to 17. And then finished his career, guess what, with the team he started with, the Seattle Mariners. But this guy, he's a 7-time All-Star. Unfortunately, did not win a World Series, but he is a Japan Series champion going back to 1996. 7-time Gold Glove Award winner. As a matter of fact, 7-time consecutive Gold Glove winner. And of course, he's also in the Japanese Hall of Fame. And that's just his stats from Japan. In MLB, he was a 10-time All-Star, an AL MVP, AL Rookie of the Year, a 10-time Gold Glove winner, 3-time Silver Slugger winner, AL Batting Champion, AL Stolen Base Leader, and of course holds the MLB record for most hits in a single season at 262, which is still the record to this day. So that is definitely a no-brainer for me for Ichiro.
Absolutely. He's been unbelievable throughout his entire career. And as you said, I know it's unanimous, but I would really like to hear, not to say anything negative, but hear the writer's perspective who did not vote Ichiro and Derek Jeter in, which leaves Mariano Rivera, the best closer in Major League Baseball history, as the only player ever to be inducted into the MLB Hall of Fame unanimously. But on the other hand, we also have CC Sabathia, who played his career primarily with the Yankees, but he started out with the Guardians and also spent some time with the Milwaukee Brewers. He is 16th all-time in MLB history with 3,093 career strikeouts, which makes him the third left-handed pitcher in MLB history to reach 3,000 Ks, and he's been awesome. He has been awesome. 251 career wins, a 2-time MLB wins leader, 2007 AL Cy Young Award winner, and the 2009 World Series champion with the New York Yankees. Unbelievable player. He basically pitched until his arm fell off. Almost 2017 in the American League Championship Series versus the Astros. CC Sabathia was pitching. And what happened? He threw a pitch against the Astros. He felt something in his shoulder. Trainer, Yankees manager at the time, Joe Girardi, came out, took him out, looked a little teary-eyed coming off the field, and in an interview later, a reporter asked him, "How disappointing is that to finish your career like that?" And what did Sabathia say? "I wouldn't have it any other way. I pitched until I literally couldn't. From the start to when he was throwing upwards of 98 miles an hour, to the end where he still had it. Good changeup, good slider, good fastball. He was awesome. And I remember another situation when he was pitching versus the Tampa Bay Rays. He had an incentive to reach a strikeout mark. And he was promised by the New York Yankees organization $500,000. But there's a little bit of a backstory with that game. Yankees are winning 10-0 at the time. The Rays come in there. They start hitting Yankee players on purpose. CC Sabathia, knowing that, the umpire gave a warning. CC Sabathia had to finish at least 5 innings for it to count as a win to get that incentive. So, what does he do? He comes out there in the bottom of the 5th inning and hits the first batter, gets ejected, and does not reach that incentive, all because he was a teammate guy who put his team first and wanted to defend his team. But no worries, the Yankees still gave him that $500,000, and he deserved it. He was always a team guy, always one that battled with tenacity, and he was so intimidating. Standing there on the mound, big frame, big guy. He was a guy, when you knew he was on the mound, especially in his prime, you were in trouble. And at the time when he pitched, in those early 2000s, a 98-mile-per-hour fastball was not common. And to put that in perspective, the average fastball velocity now, last season, in 2024, was 94 miles per hour. In the year 2000, 89 miles per hour. So safe to say, he was throwing really, really well. And combine that with a nasty slider and changeup, you're looking at an almost unhittable talent on the mound. But we have those two, and Nick, would you like to introduce our last Hall of Famer that was inducted?
Yes, I definitely would like to. And of course, thank you for that. Of course, as we all know, CC Sabathia, legend, welcome to Cooperstown. As for our third one, another lefty pitcher, we got Billy Wagner. And this guy spent his time with 5 different organizations. He started with the Astros for about 8 years. Then he went to the Phillies for a little bit of time. Then to the Mets for a couple of years. Then the Red Sox for a year. And then finished in 2010 after a 15-year career. He finished with the Atlanta Braves in 2010. He was a 7-time All-Star. He pitched a combined no-hitter going all the way back to June 11th, 2003. He was in the Houston Astros Hall of Fame, but this week they inducted him into the National Baseball Hall of Fame after his 10th ballot. So he's been in the running for quite a while now. And of course, for those of you who don't know, you need about 75% of voting to be in voting in the ballot to be in to become a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame. And his voting went up to 82.5%. So of course that is definitely enough for Billy Wagner, and it was super emotional. Of course, it's always emotional for you, but I was genuinely so happy for this guy because he's been waiting for so long, and then when you get that call saying, welcome, you're in the Baseball Hall of Fame, it's got to be such an incredible feeling waiting for all those years to come, and you're in, and you have a mark on baseball forever once that happens. And then some other additional stats. He was, and of course, as I mentioned, he was a pitcher. He was actually a reliever, possibly could have been one of the best relievers. He had a 2.31 ERA. He passed the 1,000 strikeout mark. He had 1,196 to be in particular, and he had one of the most saves in he was up there for like one of the most saves by a relief pitcher, 422, which is unbelievable to be up there with guys like Mariano Rivera who, as we just mentioned, is the only unanimous vote to be inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. So that's incredible. What an honor. Very happy for Billy Wagner. And I say this to you as well. Welcome to Cooperstown.
Absolutely. It's always an honor to get in. Not an easy thing to do. You must have a great career to get in. Well deserved for all three inductees. Once again, CC Sabathia, Ichiro Suzuki, and Billy Wagner. And with that, we will turn our attention to some recent baseball news, which is the Blue Jays and outfielder Anthony Santander reaching a 5-year, $92 million deal. Santander, he's a switch hitter. He played for the Orioles last season, and in 2024, he had a .235 batting average, but more importantly, 44 home runs, 102 RBIs, and 91 runs scored, all career bests. So, he has been able to improve every single season in Major League Baseball, and he is also the 2024 American League Silver Slugger winner. And now you bring him to a Blue Jays team that is looking to find their mark, compete consistently every single season, get atop of the American League East with teams such as the Yankees, Red Sox, and Orioles. Rays too, they're always competitive. But I like this move. I'm a fan. I think he's a guy that you can insert into the lineup in between Vladimir Guerrero, Bo Bichette, George Springer even, and just have that continuity with all of them and provide that extra bat, because we know in Major League Baseball, it's okay if you strike out over 150 times in a season, but if you are hitting 44 home runs, as in Santander did, you are going to be welcomed with open arms to everybody in the organization. So, Nick, how do you feel about this move? And does this move potentially put the Blue Jays over the edge in the American League East?
For the Blue Jays, this is an incredible move. For Yankee fans, I'm sure it's definitely something that you don't want to see, because I know that teams like the Yankees were also looking to potentially get Anthony Santander. It was up in the air, but in the end, the Toronto Blue Jays did make a deal with the Orioles, and they got Santander, and I think it's incredible. You got this powerhouse switch hitter. He's got experience. He's 30 years old. He's been in the league for about 7 or 8 years. And I mean, I think that this could definitely work well for the Blue Jays. And we didn't really see them last season as competitive as we did perhaps last season, or the season before that in 2023 or even in 22. So who knows? I think this could potentially put them in a spot where they will be able to be up there to possibly clinch the American League East. But I think they may need to do more, though. They definitely have a good team, that's for sure. They, even before Santander, they have guys like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette, who were incredible hitters, and then of course Guerrero with that powerful swing that he's got. So adding Santander, you got another big bat who could swing not only from the right side but also from the left side too. I think this is definitely a big upgrade for the Toronto Blue Jays.
I agree, and when you have a division such as the American League East where all 5 teams are constantly putting pressure on one another by making big moves, we've had it with the Yankees. They went out there this offseason. They lost superstar talent Juan Soto to the New York Mets, but they didn't hang their heads over it. They went out there, signed former Atlanta Braves pitcher, all-star Max Fried. They traded for closer Devin Williams from the Milwaukee Brewers. They signed first baseman Paul Goldschmidt. So teams are out there making moves. And on the other hand, you have a Red Sox team that is just continuing to bolster their pitching rotation. They took a guy such as Garrett Crochet, who is an unbelievable talent. 6'6", fastball upwards of 100 miles an hour, starting pitcher, and he's a guy that can be such a force with that Red Sox team. So I'm looking forward to that. But the last thing we are going to touch up on is a quick Yankees 2025 season preview, but more specifically, the bullpen. The New York Yankees have a solid bullpen. Currently, they have their 8th and 9th inning guys set up, whatever way they want to go between Luke Weaver and Devin Williams. Weaver, who has emerged on the scene most recently as of last season. But one thing with the New York Yankees bullpen, they do not have a single left-handed reliever. Nick, when looking at that in its totality, how much of an issue can that potentially be, or is it okay if you have a bullpen with all righties?
When it comes to having a bullpen, you definitely have to switch things up between righties and lefties, because if you just have a righty, I mean, hitters are going to be able to watch the tapes over and over, and they'll be able to understand it, I'd say, quicker. I mean, obviously pitchers have different velocity in the way they pitch and different thrown pitches, I mean, the most common one, of course, is fastball and curveball. Then you might have others who throw sliders and cutters, or heck, even a rare knuckleball or a knuckle curve. So that's why I think you definitely have to switch things up with righties and lefties. And that's why I think it was an amazing move when, at first I wasn't sure about it, but it turns out this was a great move when the Yankees signed free agent pitcher Tim Hill from the Chicago White Sox, who, unfortunately for them, finished at 41 and 121. The worst record in the 162-game era of MLB, but overall the second worst in MLB history, behind what is no longer a team, the Cleveland Spiders, going back to 1899 when they were 20 and 134. But the Yankees did sign Hill from the White Sox, and he's a rare pitcher that you see. He's a lefty who has got that underthrow, a side armor, and he's been an effective pitcher in their bullpen, even in the playoffs. So I think that was a great signing for them, and I think that's why teams, when it comes to having relief pitching, you definitely need to switch things up and have a righty and a lefty mixed bullpen.
Absolutely, and I think the one thing that's not understood with Tim Hill, in which I am so advocate about the Yankees re-signing him, is this is a guy who got released by the second worst team in Major League Baseball history. The second worst. And it was for good reason. Tim Hill with the White Sox in 2024. He had one win, but that's not a common stat to use to judge pitchers nowadays. A 5.87 earned run average per 9 innings, which, safe to say, is not good. 41 hits allowed, and a 387 opposing batting average by hitters. And in a league where less than 10 hitters finished with a 300 batting average last season, that's not very good. But what does Tim Hill do? He gets released on June 18th, 2024. The Yankees, 2 days later, June 20th, they scoop him up and sign Tim Hill. He was meant to let's give him a shot, maybe use him as a long reliever, a guy that can be used in low leverage situations. What does Tim Hill do with the Yankees at 34 years of age? He finishes the season with a 3-0 record, a 2.05 ERA, only 18 hits allowed, and in a day and age where a home run ball is very common, only 2 home runs allowed. And to just show how much of a funky pitcher Tim Hill really is, his average fastball velocity is 89 miles an hour. And when you have starting pitchers and relievers coming in throwing 102 miles an hour, that's a drastic difference in velocity. It's in the third percentile, and last season, Tim Hill had a 40.8% hard hit rate, which was in the 33rd percentile. But what amazes me is the way that Tim Hill forces contact by other hitters. However, it goes right to the fielders. Tim Hill in 2024 had a 10.7% strikeout percentage, which was in the first percentile. So, safe to say, he's a guy that can be a huge asset for this Yankees team if they choose to re-sign him. But with that being said, we are just about at the end of our show. Nick, any final words, NFL, MLB, or really anything in general?
I think 2 words, salary cap. What is going on with the Los Angeles Dodgers? That, I mean, obviously we don't have much time, but of course, as we know, they just won the World Series, beat the Yankees in 5, and they had a ton of injuries, and now they have guys coming back off of injuries, like pitchers like Tyler Glasnow and Ohtani could potentially be back to pitch. Then they add Blake Snell and other relief pitchers like Kirby Yates. I mean, it's incredible. So, I mean, we're in for potentially the next dynasty in baseball. Who knows? But as for the Yankees, we'll see what they can do, because they definitely made great moves since the loss of Juan Soto to the New York Mets. And I think it's going to be interesting this offseason. And we are almost there. It starts February 20th. So spring training baseball is almost here.
We are absolutely almost there, and we will definitely get into salary cap on next week's episode, next Thursday, 9 a.m., here on the Sports Corner. But with that being said, you have been listening to the very first episode of the Sports Corner here on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. I'm your host, Sebastian Stratton, and alongside me, my very excellent co-host for today's show, Nick Supa. And with that being said, we will see you next time. Have a great rest of your Thursday and a great weekend.